Hey, welcome back to the channel. We have major nerfs and buffs to a lot of specs all across the board. I mean, is Bladestorm finally back for Fury and Arms? Unholy DK is getting nerfed to its Blood Beast once again. Will it be dethroned as an S tier melee spec? How about Ret Paladins? They're getting buffed for single target, augmentation 15%, and a lot more. Let's check it out. Alright, so we started it off with Unholy Decade, which for Sand Lane, Pact of the Sand Lane now stores 25% of shadow damage dealt into Blood Beast. This used to be 50%. Now, this is yet another nerf to Blood Beast. Granted, we all know how RNG the beast is, and in reality, Unholy DKs do great damage even without the proc. But when that beast spawns and you still have mobs around, that is definitely a big increase. So this nerf will just tone it down. Personally, I might just pick up Unholy again, because it seems the difference between Sand Lane and Rider of the Apocalypse is getting smaller and smaller by the week. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait to get my hands back on the Rider of the Apocalypse Unholy Decay. I just cannot stand the Sand Lane gameplay, okay? Raise Abomination melee attack damage is increased by 30%, and Army of the Dead Magus Frostball damage increased by 40%. These, I feel, are really great as they buff up Unholy single target potential. Again, Unholy is doing great in big pulls, there's no denying that. Toning that a bit down and raising the single target damage is fine and should be the way to go. And I don't think this will change Unholy's position as one of the top melee DPS in M+. Next up, Havoc. All damage increased by 4%. Also, for the Eldrachi Reverse Mark debuff can no longer be parried. Now, this is something I didn't know was happening, but apparently it was a cause of frustration for Demon Hunters because Chaos Strike would not be parried, but the Reverse Mark debuff would get parried. So this is a great change, no doubt, for both specs, and Havoc getting a little bit of extra level, so might just push it up a notch. Don't get me wrong, Havoc was doing decent in high keys. I just feel like at this point, any sort of buffs to these specs that were kind of like mid are just great. So rejoice, Havoc Demon Hunters. Moving to Guardian Druid, all ability damage is increased by 5%. Well now, Bears are doing great in keys at the moment. I think by now we have plenty of 18s completed by Bears. But yeah, in terms of their damage output, judging by Archon.gg, they were kind of the last with an average of 1.6 million, while specs like Prot, Warrior, and Blood Decay were sitting close to 2 million. So a 5% damage all across the board should bump them up a bit. I mean, I'm happy for the Bears. And again, they're doing great in keys. I didn't see them having like major issues in terms of like survivability. They still bring out the Druid toolkit, which is very good in dungeons, specifically this season with suits and decurses and invades and all of that. So a bump to the damage, I'll take it. Feral Druid, all ability damage and auto attack damage increased by 3%. Oh boy, this one was a pleasant surprise, although we've seen Ferals competing with Unholy DKs in big pulls. I mean, I can definitely tell you some stories about Ferals and Unholy DKs in Cinder Brew, the first pull. But I can think of a lot of other specs needing damage buffs. But I love Feral. I'm happy to see them in S tier and high keys, and even if we look at Archon.gg, you can see them landing on an average of 3.3 million, which is higher than Enhanced Shaman and Fire Mage. This buff is not only for their abilities, like Guardian had, but their auto attack damage as well. So be prepared to see Feral climb even higher after next week's reset. Yeah, I know, 3% is tiny, but Ferals were already doing great, so leave me alone, it's fine. And we come to Augmentation, which has a giga buff to all of its damage by 15%. Listen, this will not change anything. Augmentation is at the last of the lastest in the world. Nobody's doing anything with Augmentation. I mean, there are a couple of logs with Augmentation, and I salute you, brave soldiers, but holy hell. Yeah, yet another full buff to everything for augmentation. And listen, I understand Blizz at this point, they basically killed the spec, and with every class tuning phase, they buff it to at least have it do some damage. The buff won't be enough, I feel, especially because even Might will still be shit, and in terms of pure numbers, Devastation is still way ahead, so much so that former Aug players cannot even see them. And they probably reroll to Devastation at this point. I honestly don't know how they could bring Augmentation back without making it mandatory in groups again, but one thing I do know is that since they killed this spec, we've seen a lot more variety in comps, at least for Mythic Plus. I personally like the concept of Augmentation, a spec that buffs players all around, and they clearly need to come up with a rework and not repeat the same mistakes back from when they first introduced the spec. Next up, Frost Mages. We have the Spellslinger hero talent buffed up, so splinter damage increased by 10%, controlled instinct damage increased by 40% of splinter damage, this used to be 30%, and volatile magic damage increased by 25%. So Frost Mages have been climbing up the ladder on a week-by-week basis. Now we all know the premier specs in keys, high keys at least, are Arcane and Fire Mage, but Frost Mages are doing great damage also, and they are clearing 18s all across the board, no problemo. Truth is, a big majority of these Frost Mages are playing the Frostfire hero talent, so seeing these buffs to Spellslinger might be an incentive to try it out. We'll have to see after the next reset, but in general, this is kind of good to see. Buffing underperforming hero talents instead of nerfing everything left and right is great. Next up, Retribution Paladins. So we have a whopping 80% buff to Blade of Justice. Now, listen, I know it's a huge number, okay, but Blade of Justice doesn't hit that hard at all. So it's not, don't go all out, oh my god, Ret Paladins are broken again. No, it's fine. It's a nice buff, but it won't break the spec. Blade of Justice deals like pretty shitty damage. Divine Arbiter damage is increased by 50%. And Final Verdict damage increased by 10%. Clearly, these are all single target buffs, and yes, I do believe Ret Paladins needed some single target love. In Mythic Plus, Reds do great AoE, and in high keys, people are playing with Final Reckoning, sacrificing Execution Sentence, which would be one of the single target or priority increases. Truth be told, Execution Sentence is still being played at mid keys, but having a 10% buff to Final Verdict will definitely help Red's damage on bosses, and Divine Arbiter is a capstone only taken in raid, so this will not affect Mythic Plus too much, but for all you Ret Paladins out there who still progress, this is 100% good news. Holy Priest. Another class tuning phase, another buff to Holy Priest. Listen man, ever since they introduced the mini rework from 11.1 to Holy Priest, they've tried to make it work in Mythic Plus, and by all means, Holy Priest right now is doing okay with 17s all across the boards, I think, even some 18s done as well. HPS is sitting at an average of 1.2 million, but it still relies on big instant heals, and it's struggling in heavy rot damage. As much as they buffed Prayer of Healing consistently, it's still not enough. Maybe with this buff now, it will get closer to Resto Shamans and these priests in terms of pure throughput, but Holy Skit is just not as efficient and optimized for M+, as its disc counterpart or other healers for that matter. I'm hoping, man, one day, because I love Holy too, and I really want to play it. But let's talk about warriors, because we have a 30% increase in damage for Bladestorm for both Fury and Arms. Also, for the Slayer hero talent, which nobody really plays, Reap, the storm damage is increased by 30%, again, for both specs. So, does this mean Bladestorm is finally back? Well, not likely from what I've seen on the Skyhold Discord. Arms would need to drop Colossus and go Slayer for Bladestorm to make any sense at all, and that is not happening anytime soon since Demolish is just too good to pass. And Fury will not change to Slayer for M+, no way. Mountain Thane will still be the go-to, and listen, I know Warriors miss their Bladestorms, but this is not enough. Sure, it's a step in the right direction, and I Could be wrong, but judging from what warrior mains are saying in the Skyhold Discord, arms are not dropping Colossus and Fury warriors are not dropping Mountain Tains. I feel bad for warriors, man, and listen, you can let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Warriors are being addressed slightly here, but I feel it's long overdue for a rework for the whole warrior class. And you can check our thoughts about the warrior rework that needs to happen, but might never happen, who knows, but click here and check it out because there's tons of cool ideas. Go ahead and click it.